Okay, good morning, you beautiful New Zealanders. We're not Aotearoa rights. This is New Zealand, not Aotearoa. Okay, in the last few videos, we've been discussing this interview between Scotty Morrison on the left and Tama Potaka, who's a National Party minister on the right, and they're talking on this program called Marae. And we're going through basically what they're talking about and then analysing it and commentating upon it. So today we're going to do another section, the very last piece of this video, which is the last 30 seconds. So let's do that together now.
The settlement obligations that are outstanding, and there are over 10,000 of those outstanding, mainly with organisations and agencies such as Te Papa Atawhai, Department of Conservation, and LINZ, Land Information New Zealand. So that's one area where I've got a big focus with my team at Te Arawhiti to make sure we understand the gamut of responsibilities that come after treaty settlements are arranged and the legislation's gone through. Okay, what obligations do we have now? And there's a lot of work that we have to do in that space to make sure we follow through. And the Crown's obligations do not stop when a settlement arrangement is concluded. Actually, they continue over time, and that's the promise of Te Tiriti o Waitangi, the Treaty of Waitangi.
Well, there's no doubt that Tama Potaka is a out-and-out activist. And he's in a crucial position inside the national government, working with Luxon, shoveling cash, assets, buildings, farms, beaches, forests, dockland to Maori, and none of us know about it. So I want to go back to this morning just to revisit this chapter from Twisting the Treaty, the Tribal Grab for Wealth and Power. It's a Tross publishing book that was published in 2014. And I'm talking about pages 175 to 176, and the author of that chapter is Mike Butler, who's an outstanding researcher, historian, treaty commentator. He says this in that chapter. He says, the fact that Maori activists still regularly take protest to the street, to the maraes at Waitangi, to the marae at Waitangi, and to the beaches in the far north shows that generous treaty settlements have not stopped protest and possibly have encouraged more. Now, I would argue with Mike that over the last 50 years, generous treaty settlements, he calls them, have not stopped protest. I'd agree with that, no doubt about that, but he says possibly may have encouraged more. Well, I would say definitely have encouraged more. Because what's happened is we've kept on paying out, and what it's done is it's actually trained Maori to come back for more. It's become insatiable for them because they realise that this is a pot of gold that just keeps on coming. And when politicians have appeased Maori, given in to them, all it's done is like Pavlov's dog, it's encouraged them to come back for more and more and more and more. And then Mike says this, although it was claimed that the settlements would promote reconciliation, racial ill-feeling appears higher now than it was before the Fourth Labour government so foolishly allowed claims back to 1840. So these settlements were supposed to promote reconciliation, racial reconciliation. The ill feeling now in New Zealand, Mike wrote this in 2014. The racial ill feeling right now in New Zealand is at boiling point. In other words, between 2014 and 2024, 10 years, things have got a lot worse, much, much worse. In other words, the more treaty settlements and the more that's handed over to Maori, the more insatiable Maori have become, the worse racial ill-feeling has become. And we're in real trouble in this country right now because we're at boiling point. He says treaty settlements have rewritten history, the factual basis of which is open to serious challenge. He's saying that most of these treaty settlements are based on twisted history, facts are not in the mix, Anecdotes, stories, hearsay, memories. This is what claimants bring to the tribunal, the Waitangi Tribunal, and they're accepted as fact. And we have a whole industry that's based on untruth. It's based on fake history. It's based on wrong interpretations of the treaty, twisted interpretations of the treaty. And then Mike says this: most grievances had been settled by 1960 on a full and final basis, and that should have been the end of the story. Now, if you go back to 1927, there was something called the SIM Commission, S-I-M. It was a royal commission that investigated all the grievances that Maori have ever suffered since 1840, and full and final payments had been paid out. And we're now in 2024, and we've got 10,000 in the pipeline. 10,000 grievances. We're losing the beaches. We're losing dockland. We're losing crown land. We've talked about this in previous videos. And so things aren't getting better, they're actually getting worse in every single area. Race relations are worse. Racial division is worse. Demands for settlements is worse. They're skyrocketing. The amount of money involved is skyrocketing. The Waitangi Tribunal reports spin the details of history into finely crafted arguments supporting compensation. That's what they do. And remember, we said that ministers were too busy and history ignorant to fact check the recommendations made by the Waitangi Tribunal. So you've got a perfect recipe for an invasion of New Zealand, a full-on takeover of the country. If you add a corrupt Waitangi Tribunal packed with activists, with history-ignorant MPs, then you have a recipe for a complete disaster. In 2004, historian Michael Basset, then a sitting member of a tribunal member on the Waitangi Tribunal, he was on the tribunal for 10 years, so he's an insider, who earlier was a cabinet minister in the Longi government, David Longi's government, that set up the course of the latest round of treaty settlements. He wrote in the Dominion, he wrote this. So this is a guy well qualified to talk about the Waitangi Tribunal. It is surely time to re-examine the tribunal's usefulness. He wrote this in 2004. Can you imagine that? That's 20 years ago. The captivity of crusading historians and those who have built careers out of sowing, then farming grievances. So there's historians and people who have farmed grievances. They've sown them and then farmed them to make money. The current body has passed its sell-by date. So he's saying there's a whole mass of people. He's missing out lawyers as well, and bureaucrats who've been sowing grievances, and Maori radicals who've been sowing grievances and then farming them, making them up, and then harvesting them. And of course now we have a massive industry, and the country's rapidly being transferred from the public of New Zealand over to Maori. There is enough evidence, says Michael Basset, to settle all his outstanding historical grievances quickly. Now, again, I say, he said this in 2004. And he was right in the middle of the Waitangi Tribunal. He was there for 10 years. And he says, you know what, in 2004, there was enough evidence to settle these grievances on full and final basis, once and for all. Well, we've now got 10,000 in the pipeline. 10,000 more when they were all ready to be settled, when they were settled in 1960 on a full and final basis. And in 2004, there was enough evidence to settle all the rest of them quickly, any outstanding ones. He says that process should have been completed. What the future relevance of the treaty might be then requires further public debate. In other words, he's saying, you know what? We should really just open this up to public debate about the place of the treaty in New Zealand right now. He was saying this in 2004. And he says that issue, the issue of the treaty, involves all of us, not just the Waitangi industry's vested interests. So this is not just about activists getting whatever they want. It's not just about the Waitangi Tribunal handing out cash and assets like there's no tomorrow to Māori. It's not just about politicians giving over the beaches, dockland, massive amounts of cash, crown land to Māori, all without the public really knowing what's going on, all by stealth. This is about all of us, because we're all settlers here. Do you know, Maori are not indigenous. They just came here like everybody else. Everybody here in New Zealand, that's Maori and all the other 160 cultures here, we are all settlers here. We're people who came to this country. And Maori were not the first. There's massive evidence that there was other cultures who were here first, not least of which is the Moriori, who experienced genocide at the hand of Maori. Nobody talks about that. And so this should be opened up to public debate fully and completely, which is one of the things that David Seymour wants to do. And look at the attacks on David Seymour. Look at the attacks on his bill that he's trying to push through. Look at how the media is piling in on him. And look at how the media is trying to stop that, and Maori are trying to stop that, because, do you know what? They want to keep the gravy train going. They want to complete the coup. This is Maori radicals. They want to complete the coup. So watch this space. So what are we trying to do here with this series of videos? Well, it should be clear that we're trying to restore democracy. Democracy has been destroyed. One person, one vote. All votes of equal value. No favoritism to any of the 160 cultures who live here. We're all settlers, we're all the same. Doesn't matter what your ethnicity, your colour of your skin. We're all the same. We don't want New Zealand to become an apartheid state, an ethno-state. We don't want New Zealand to become like South Africa. We could be the most beautiful country in the world. We could be the wealthiest country in the world. We could be the most prosperous country in the world, but we're not. Because right now, if we don't restore all this, if we don't restore democracy, we're going to become the Zimbabwe of the South Pacific, and there's nothing surer. Hey, thank you for watching this. Please can you like, share, comment on this video? You know, the media is corrupt in New Zealand, so we actually have to go around them. We have to share it with each other and keep it in-house, unfortunately. Thank you, you lovely New Zealanders, for watching this and helping, being part of the solution.